Welcome to The Wobbly Middle, a podcast for women rethinking their careers in midlife. Hi, Jacquie. Hi, Becky.
Hi. Hiya.
It's so nice to see you both, and I wish I was actually in the room with you over there. It looks very stylish, actually.
Thank you.
Jacquie, starting with you, only 8% of people working in advertising are over the age of 51. And as you've said previously, of that, the percentage that are women are going to be microscopic. What did you see back in 2019 that led you to what is now a visible start?
It was just the constant line of midlife women that were exiting any business in our industry when there was a round of redundancies. We were always first in the queue. And it's something that really, obviously, grated with me and deeply concerning, because particularly working on the media owner side, so my whole career has been in magazines and national press. We were working in companies that produce magazines for women of all ages, and yet we were the ones that were the first to march out the door. And I think that it really struck a chord with me, because understanding more about the financial position that midlife women are in, because we haven't had equal pay and we haven't earned as much money as our male counterparts, or indeed saved or have the pension pots that are equivalent. If you're making us purposely redundant, not through choice, but through systematically, shelling of resource, then it does mean that we're going to be left to retire in poverty, not dignity, if you're not giving us the opportunity to move back into the workplace, to kickstart a second career, should it be through our choice or not. So that's really what really kind of struck a chord with us.
Something that has come through in your messaging quite strongly is that by employing women in midlife, you're not doing us a favor. It's good for business.
It's something that I feel deeply strongly about, that I call it the Oliver Twist analogy, is that we feel at the moment that we're almost going with our begging bowl and our cap in hand, saying to HR directors and employers, please, sir, give us a job, be kind to us. We're really rather lovely and we'll be very good. And we need to flip that attitude, and we need to showcase to employers that they do need us. And it's not that I'm not trying to think that I'm willing it. There has been research that's been conducted with many, many big brand institutions and organizations prove that midlife women in the workforce delivers results for the business. They make them more commercially profitable. There is a lot that we can offer. We've got wisdom, and we've got life learning experiences, and we've got an understanding that whatever you throw at us, what's the worst that can happen? We are a resilient demographic, and we do understand what that actually plays out in the workforce. And we've got empathy. And also we have agency, and also we have humanity, which is something that I think in this current climate, with the advent of how AI is reinventing the whole workplace, that humanity is something that I think is of real value and importance to a multi-generational workforce.
Yeah, and in addition to that, there's the purchasing power of women in midlife. And, you're in advertising, so they should be speaking to those who are spending the money.
You don't get me started on that one. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And actually, that's one of the fundamental problems. Our pound is very, very strong, very valuable. We're also the decision makers. There was a report that was brought out by the National Audit Commission, I think back in 2019, when our company first started, that said that over 51% of all purchasing decisions are made by us, are made by midlife women. We decide on behalf of our partners and our parents and our children, and yet nobody sends that messaging directly to us. We're an invisible demographic to target, and that's primarily because there's no midlife woman in the room on the advertising agency side or on the marketeer side. So this is something that filters through, that it showcases that we then get invisible and silenced and removed from the equation of any decision-making process. And that's what we really have to flip around and showcase, that, we are rather wonderful and we do actually have money to spend, and we actually have something to give back into the workplace that makes just a better working environment all round. So it's a win-win. There's no negative by taking us on board.
Yes, we are wonderful indeed. And so Visible Start, the genesis was in the advertising program, and now you've moved further out into sort of extending wider in the industry. And we have Rebecca Byrne. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming on today, because you're a graduate of one of the Visible Start.
She's a Visible Start alumni.
I am indeed, yes.
That's right. You're an actor at heart, and then you moved into training. Tell us what drew you back into a career returner program, where from the outside, when you told me what you had done, I thought, wow, that's a lot. You're adaptable and resilient, and you've done lots. What appealed to you about the returner program run by Visible Start?
I think the thing is that there are lots of women who have had careers that they have begun, and because of the practicalities of family life or caring responsibilities or other issues, maybe illnesses themselves, that have taken them out of the workplace. And then for a lot of people who've taken a break, technology has moved on without them. So the way that we get jobs, the way that we apply for jobs, the way that we work our CVs, the way that we use AI has now become very commonplace for people. And if you are in a workplace where this continues, then, and I'm not just speaking from my own experience, but for other experience of other women I've spoken to, then the workplace is moving on without you. So when you want to go back into that workplace, you've got great skills, but the way those jobs are done is changing. And a lot of the jobs that have been previously done have gone. So if you have the skills to do them, you don't know where to apply those skills and what transferable skills you've got from a workplace that you were once very present in. You now, how do I make those adapt? So it's finding the skills you've got and thinking, how do I move on with these in the current workplace?
Jacquie, what do you say to employers who suggest that, you know, midlife women have no tech skills?
Well, I restrain my answer because I could full throttle on it. What we try and showcase and highlight is that we're not old dogs that you can't teach new tricks to. I think, as Rebecca said, you know, there are many things that we've experienced and witnessed over our lifetime, and you can't. My very first job, we didn't even have a computer. You know, a computer was something that you kind of thought just very few people in the company would have. We've lived through the internet age. I mean, I was working in advertising when the internet launched back in 2000, and everyone thought that, you know, we couldn't possibly pivot and understand how that process works. So don't say to us that we are too long in the tooth to understand and learn. One of the things that we give on this program, as well as what Rebecca said, is that we deep dive into the world of AI, because for the first time, midlife women can start at the front facing of AI learning, just as any other demographic can do.
To also augment that, it's not like anybody's born knowing how to do this. It's not automatic, and everybody comes into a workplace. There's plenty of people who have degrees that have nothing to do with the jobs that they end up doing, and they learn on the job. And there's no reason why you can't learn a job, whether you're 22 or 52. You come in and somebody gives you a training program. So the idea that just because you're a certain age, you don't have that ability to be able to do that. If anything, midlife women are the best people who are nimble workers, because we've had to adapt to so many changes
all the time in so many different circumstances.
We apply our skills, our life skills that we've learned, in juggling the commitments that we have around. And the idea that somehow because you're a woman and you're midlife, you are incapable of learning something new is incredibly insulting but infuriating, because it's a barrier that doesn't exist, being created artificially.
It is infuriating. Both of you have mentioned, Jacquie, you used the term transferable skills, and you, Becky, also spoke about bringing things from your previous life. Becky, in your course that you were doing, do you mind sharing with us what you thought, this is what I'm bringing from, these are the skills I'm bringing from my earlier life?
I think there are lots of things that most women who've been running a household, looking after kids or looking after parents or juggling responsibilities, this sounds like a CEO. This sounds, why does this not apply directly to somebody running their own business? You know, HR, it involves people management. If anybody who has negotiated with a toddler how to try broccoli or beans or spinach, they know how to negotiate things. the joke always used to be, you know, if you want to negotiate with terrorists, send in the mum, because it's, you know, it's the same skills. So there's so many skills that we've used in our day-to-day life. You've budgeted for a household. You know, you've learned how to sell things to people. You've learned how to listen and negotiate and manage. And all these skills sound that they used to be, or the term soft skills is what they used in the workplace. It's actually, again, it negates what they are. It implies that they are less important. But actually those people skills, those ways of dealing in marketing, in social media, are the ways that you'll get people in. And if we have just said that women have this spending power, we know how to talk to these women. We know how to say to them, I understand that you want this from a product, you want that from a product. So there's lots of things. So from the performance aspect that I had when I worked as an actor, knowing how to go into a room and engage a room and speak confidently and learn a script and to adapt that to the audience. You know, that was a transferable skill. From managing a household with 3 kids and 2 dogs and a cat and a husband that worked away, this is the sort of adaptable flexibility that people tend to look for immediately when you see a job description. You know, nimble thinkers, adaptable, attention to detail. You know, this is life for most midlife women,
and that's what we bring to the fore when we start the program. We get about 300 women who register to attend each program and about 150 that actually participate. It's really important to showcase that it's completely free for women, so we never ever charge for all the content and the rich learnings that we equip these women with. It's all free for them, which is something we feel very strongly about. But we do ask them how they feel about their current situation where they've been trying unsuccessfully to get back to work. And of course, the word cloud is 100% negative adjectives, that they feel isolated, alone, and low self-esteem and low self-worth, and invisible and broken and damaged and pissed off and all of those things. I can't remember if I mentioned, but it's all online as well. And we repeat every session 3 times, morning, afternoon and evening, because we know that midlife women aren't sitting on their backsides doing nothing. When they first start, they're anxious, their videos are switched off, their mics are switched off, they communicate via the chat. And we say to them, my job is to give you a virtual hug. And my job is to hold your hand and guide you through every single session that we run to showcase to you just how awesome you are. And what we try and do, that everything that Rebecca has articulated, what you achieve at home, we showcase how that is essential and utilized in the workspace, so that they then start to recognize, oh my God, I'm brilliant at this and I could do that. And so therefore I can apply for that. So it's very humbling, but it's beautiful to see that at the end of the 10-week course, you know, their cameras are on, they're very shouty, they're very confident, and, you know, they've got energy and fire in their stomach. All we've done is just reflect back at them just how marvelous they are.
Everyone has a different motivation for wanting to go back to work. You spoke earlier about the financial need. That will always be an important priority. But there are also these ideas that some women just have unfulfilled ambitions, and their careers, while they may have been a part of that decision to take off time to care or to look after their children, be grateful for that period at home, there's still something inside them that they feel they haven't fulfilled.
Absolutely. But I think it's also about maintaining that endless curiosity about the world. And I think that there's this, again, an idea that suddenly you get to a certain age and your world starts turning inward, that you're not interested in the outside world, you're not interested in economics or finance or marketing or advertising, that these things suddenly don't apply to you anymore, like some switch has gone off, which is just rubbish. When we did the sessions and we started to get to know one another, we discovered so many of the women in these groups, we go into breakout rooms online and start chatting. So many of these women had such interesting takes. They'd lived incredible lives. They had such a depth of experience, not just within the homes, because it implies that we're all staying at home looking after kids and then suddenly looking for a job. But these are people who'd pivoted between so many things to fit in around the world that they were inhabiting and the other responsibilities that they had. And of course, they were still interested. They were curious. They wanted to learn. They wanted to improve and still grow. We don't reach some sort of peak and then start to shrink into the world again. Yeah. And I think there's this idea, as you said, wither is a great word, this idea that we get old and we are irrelevant and our views don't matter anymore, because there is a sort of fetishizing of the young in our society, and it implies that all of the power lies in their hands. But actually, as we've discussed, the spending power, the influential power, the experience power actually lies in our hands. We have so much to turn back outwards, and we are being forced to sit inwards and internalize it, because nobody's interested in making that a part of their workplace. And this is about turning people's perceptions around.
This is the societal narrative, and I think that one of the things that was really rewarding and refreshing is that when we did the pilot in 2021, and our main sponsor was the former CEO Mark Reed of WPP, and he said that he realized that he's now got the competitive edge because he's got midlife women in his organization. And so I think that there's a lot of re-education. One of the things that we do is we work with WPP and talk about gendered ageism, because you've got to tackle the elephant in the room, which is the midlife women in the room. You've got to tackle that head on and say, what do you think is the negative impact that having a midlife woman in the organization is? We're not there to steal jobs. We're not there to get our crusty index finger out and go, oh, back in our day, this is how we did it, and this is how you've got to behave now. We are in there to benefit simultaneously multi-generational workforces. We've got a lot to give. We've also got a lot to learn, and we can share that understanding. It can make the workforce stronger and therefore deliver added value to the organization.
Jacquie, I'm really encouraged by that input from the industry. And I see that as you got that input from the industry and as you got feedback from the graduates on your course, so the course must have evolved over time. What is the current structure or the ethos underneath the current course?
It definitely has evolved and grown. The core elements of what we cover in the first few weeks really focuses on the women. So as we mentioned before, we talk about transferable skills. What's really also important is that we have a professional life coach in who really focuses on what us midlife women do the best at, which is that we're self-saboteurs, that we have got that imposter syndrome down to a fine art. And she really addresses that whole aspect of that self-doubt mechanic that literally is in your head. But we also are mindful that the workplace has indeed changed an awful lot. So WPP plug in their own in-house training modules that reflects to these women, some of whom have been out of the workforce for a long time, what the current workplace looks like. So we talk about inclusion and allyship and neurodiversity and growth mindset and returning to work with balance. These dynamics would never have existed 10 years ago. And if you have got dyslexia, it's fine. If you have been recently diagnosed with ADHD, that's okay too. There's support and infrastructure. Whereas we're from an era where if you had anything like that, you certainly wouldn't reveal that. You wouldn't tell your boss at all. You would suffer in silence.
And sorry to talk over you, but it may have actually kept you out of the workplace.
So there are many, many elements that we have thought and curated the content really, really positively to ensure that any doubt that they've got in their minds, we can address. It's not that we're just kind of not focusing on it. We're actually focusing on it and addressing it in a positive way. We've also got third party that lean in and help us with the program. So Microsoft come and do Excel training for our cohort. And that's really interesting because so many of the women are terrified of a spreadsheet. And by the end of the program, Excel's their friend. Also, we have LinkedIn come and do profile training because a lot of these women have never had a LinkedIn profile and have to understand, how to use that. But two things that we've added recently is that we are aware that there are many women who've got, real mental health issues. So we decided to engage with a qualified professional therapist because we definitely aren't. And we give that offering to any women of the cohort who believes that they do need help, that they get a free hour with this therapist because they don't know what they don't know. So it might be that they think they're suffering from depression, but actually it's not that. They might potentially have ADHD and just had no idea. So this is a kind of an opportunity for them to be in a private space to share what their concerns are and for an expert to say, actually, it might be that you've got this and to send them off in a direction. We also have, as I mentioned, AI, and that's really, really important, but it's also important in the context of how it can help them get back to work. So whether it's helping with CV writing or covering letter writing. And it's quite interesting because I'd say that 50% of the cohort terrified of AI and don't want to know, and 50% of the cohort are terrified of AI and do want to know. But an awful lot of them believe that AI is cheating. And so therefore we've got to educate them about that. The thing that terrifies them the most is their CVs, because they say, we've got so many blanks. And it's the one time that I get really angry with them and I go, it is not a blank if you have not been in a paid work environment. You've been doing something dramatically more important, which is marrying, partners, looking after parents, having kids. So it is not a blank. And we can showcase what skills those are that you can transfer back into the workplace.
Becky, did you get that talking to?
I did, yes.
You know, we are from the punk generation, you know, where we keep saying, you know, the Spice Girls are midlife women. Don't think when you think of a midlife woman, think of Helen Mirren. She's 80. You know, we are the Spice Girls generation, and we still obviously have an awful lot left to give, which is really, really important.
There were so many things that you were talking about the scared to go to the job interview, scared to write your CV, scared to do LinkedIn. And I think that the message is that everybody feels like that, but that's not the reason not to get started.
No, absolutely.
You know, we're all scared when we have to do those things, and that there's help out there. And the idea of the community of women, whether it's through a well-structured program like Visible Start, or whether it's your community of friends at home, it's about engaging with it. So the first step is to start thinking and talking and engaging with it, because the things that you're fearing are the same things that everybody fears. You're not unique in that way.
I think the other important thing to think about is nobody's an expert in everything. Nobody is an expert in writing CVs. Nobody's born knowing how to do these things. So this is something you're going to have to learn at this point. But you have lots of other things you know better than a lot of the people in the workplaces you're going to go into. So once you get into the workplace, you might not know what you're doing, but you learn as soon as you get in there. And you know what? From my experience, people are so generous and so kind and so helpful.
They don't want you to fail.
They don't want you to fail. And the other thing is, there's a 21-year-old coming in who doesn't know other things that you can really help them with. So nobody knows how to do everything. It's just that we fear that the new stuff is more important than the old stuff that's been around for such a long time. And somehow we have this weird idea that you can't blend the two. And you absolutely can. So I think it's just taking what we know that we can do, what we have to learn, and nicely meeting those together.
Yes, I really love that idea about the old and the new not being mutually exclusive. I have a question that I ask all our guests. Jacquie, if you don't mind going first. What is the piece of advice you would give to your 30-year-old self?
It's very interesting because I've got two answers that I use. One which you might have to edit.
No, I won't.
Because my younger self, I'll tell more people to fuck off. And the other one is that because this is what this is all about, is make sure that you put money in your pension pot. I know it's a very, very sad, you know, kind of lecturing kind of thing, but I truly believe that, you know, if we had an equal footing in terms of the kind of jobs that we can apply for, we would be in a very, very solid financial position compared to our male counterparts, which we're not at the moment. So those are the two bits of advice I'd give.
And on the pension pot fund, it's not too late now. And there are lots of programs targeting women to help educate them, and it's not too late to start putting in your pension now to still yield results. And Becky, what would you tell your 30-year-old self?
First thing I tell them is save up as much money as you can, and about 2019 buy shares in Zoom. That's the first thing I say to them. And you won't know what it is then, but you will about a year later. Yeah. About a year later, you'll be laughing. One of the biggest things I would say is don't believe you're better than anybody else, but you are just as good.
Yeah.
And I think be humble, curious. You know,
not apologetic though.
Not apologetic, but humble, curious is good. Humility, but curiosity is good.
Yeah.
You know, so don't ever stop being curious. And I think it's about belief. I think we're spent, particularly women, as young women, the currency that we have is very black and white, or it was for us growing up when we were. It's very much about being A, very well behaved, and B, looking attractive. They were the two things that got you on in life.
I failed at both of those.
If you had both of them,
That's
you
not
were
true.
laughing. But the thing is, both of them are probably going to go, because by the time you get to our age, you're no longer well behaved. And looks go very quickly. So I think it's about learning not to be full of yourself, but believing that you are as good as everybody else. And I think that's not something that's ever really told to us when we were younger.
No.
So, you know, that stops the imposter syndrome, because you don't have to be arrogant, but you're as good as anybody else. But the Zoom thing, that's what I tell myself.
Thank you very much, both of you. It's so lovely to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It's been wonderful.
It's a lovely chat. Thank you so much.